Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Magnolia Conference 2012. As you can see, we're pretty much solidly booked out. Ben's sitting on the stairs, but I thought it would be worse, so I'm glad everybody got a seat. This is most excellent. We have a record number of talks this year. As you might have noticed, we added a technical track on the Community Day tomorrow. So you have 2 tracks today, a technical track tomorrow, and the unconference tomorrow. So the conference is really packed with action. We have amazing talks this year, so you will enjoy that, I'm pretty sure. It's obviously the biggest conference so far that we have done. It's our 3rd, and very proud that this is so successful. So, speaking of which.
Before we jump into the past and then back to the future, I would personally like to thank everybody, clients, partners, and our friends who are here today that supported us over the years and gave us the support we needed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that growing success that we currently have. I would like to talk a little bit about the figures, about our consolidated statement, so people are always interested, as we all know, publicly noted. So if you see the 2009, 10, 11, and 12, that's the consolidated statement. We made in 2009 2.7 million, and we had a deferred income of 0.9. So when you see this, you see a growth between 20%, 35%, and almost 50% over the years. It's been tremendous for us if you compare that to the industry average, which is roughly like between 10 and 20% max. So this is only due to the case that we have subscriptions, that our business model is based on that. And if you see the blue numbers, and this is the most amazing thing for us, and it gives us the freedom to have all our business on stable soils. This is the 0.9, 1.3, 2.4, and 3.2 million is deferred income. That's the licenses we get in year 2011, but we push to the next year due to the case that we have subscription and we put every month into account. So, talking about new clients, I think this is the most important point. As we have seen in the past, we have several new clients and several large clients. For us, this is crucial as they have taken Magnolia not just for departmental solutions, but for their strategic decision. Strategic decision means that they are planning with Magnolia not only for a year or 2 years, they're planning with Magnolia for 5 to 10 years. I'd like to talk about our newest and latest wins. I can talk about now Basel.ch and BS.ch. It's the canton of Basel-Stadt, which makes us very proud, headquartered here in Basel, that they have decided for Magnolia and they will redo all their website based on Magnolia, roughly like between 100 and 150 websites. TeliaSonera, another big client, especially in the Scandinavian area, which is huge there, which is the 5th biggest telecom company, if I'm right, in Europe. So what they have done, what I've heard that they have done is like they did 6 POCs over a certain time, and in the end they decided for Magnolia. So that made us proud and gives you as well as clients and partners the knowledge that Magnolia can sustain even against others and compete against other CMSs, open source or commercial. Allianz, another main company who does the whole new business based on insurances in Germany, based on Magnolia. So they started like with a small project, did a POC, and then now they roll out. We have tons of others, and some of them are big. Abbott in the United States will hopefully soon go online with Magnolia. We have Sony, Thomas Cook, lots of large deals to be said. Yep. Next, selected new partners. For us, it's important not to have big partners, as you see here. That's our latest large partners, but small partners as well. Small partners are crucial for us because they spread the word about Magnolia. They are really important for community aspects and for, you know, like for doing apps, for doing add-on development, stuff like this. But if big companies like Mindtree, Tata Consulting Services, and Tieto are deciding for Magnolia as a main strategy to be used, then you see that that Magnolia is getting bigger and getting more used everywhere in the world.
So this brings us back to today, Magnolia in 2012. I would like to talk a little bit about the company. You see the picture here. It shows a little bit of the spirit that we have. And I hope the food that we serve on the terrace is not the only reason why people start working for us. But we do have a great team. And I would like to take this moment and say thank you to the team. I think it fits well. They've done a tremendous job to bring you what we will show you later on. We all know that. And I'm really proud of that achievement. So this year, or in the last 12, 18 months maybe, we managed to hire the whole second level management for Magnolia. We're now about a little bit more than 40 people in various locations. We just opened a new office in Miami. You might have seen the photos on Facebook. By the way, we have nearly 1,000 likes on Facebook, so if you haven't liked us there, do so. I would love to get over the number 1,000 today. It's just 6 people, it's just 6 people missing, so
3 missing.
3, okay, excellent, thanks. This is going fast. It's very agile here. We keep growing organically. That means we try to attract talent, and very successfully so. So again, if I come to the C-level management at Magnolia, we have now the second level management. We are very happy that the future of Magnolia rests on their shoulders, and we can think about the future, which is what we tend to do more and more recently. It's not that we don't do any work anymore, believe me, but anyways. The last thing we did was the 4.5 release, which you all have seen, certainly. It's kind of the first part of Magnolia 5 for all the new projects. They use the new core technology and can then seamlessly move on to Magnolia 5. This is the 10th year that we work on Magnolia 5. That's also quite amazing. I remember when we got started, we were like, it's after a year or two, we will probably have implemented everything that we need in a CMS, and then what? I think we're still working on it. What is great for us, and the company is now 15-year-old, all in all, is that the vision that we had for what we want to achieve, together with you, most obviously, is becoming a reality. And so let's talk a little bit about what that vision is and where we all got started.
Talking about simplicity on an enterprise scale, we had some visions when we started in 2003 Magnolia. We had a vision to do the simplest to use CMS in the world. I mean, lots of people came to me when we said we are going to do another CMS. They said, why are you going to do another CMS? I mean, there are tons out there, and good ones said, I think we can do it better. And that was our vision. Do things for all parties involved. Do things for developers, for editors, and for administrators. Do it as good as possible, based on traditional, open source, standard-based software. So since the beginning, this was our aim, to create that kind of software.
Yeah, and I think one of the aspects there was that, I was one of the guys who said, why are we writing a CMS? There's lots of good stuff out there. So I think I now know why, and I hope you do as well. And we saw that the web is where stuff is happening. That's why we did this, and I think that's more true today than it was 10 years ago. So during this time, during the last 10 years, 15 years actually, we went through a lot of transformations of the company, and I think that's something we would like to talk about.
Quickly, transformations are key to the success of a company, to manage them thoroughly and to manage them successfully. I think transformations are the point where things happening. For example, when you look at the first phase, the first Magnolia phase, as we talk now, from 2003 up to 2006, that was the project phase. I mean, we were a usual system integrator, some kind of bit an agency. We try to do successful projects with our own software, with our own completely open source software, which you couldn't buy at that time. So we cross-financed out of the project our development. And as usual, open source software developers, we wanted to sell support. And we could sell in 4 years, 1 hour of support. That was critical to sustain and to judge and to justify the development. So we had the idea to do an enterprise edition and a community edition, so that we can refinance the development, and not just from project, but from licensing. Fortunately, after 3 months, we were really happy. We had like already 4 customers, and we said, okay, yeah, let's go for it.
Working.
And let's drop all the services. Let's drop all the project services. And let's get some partners that do the services and not competing with those partners upon services. And that's been a really hard time. You know, when you can't go for services anymore because you don't want to compete with partners, and it's so difficult to have already enough licenses to sustain. But it happened very well, and in the third phase that we started like 2 years ago, we had a good amount of money to start thinking about innovations and to start thinking about bringing Magnolia to the next level.
Yeah, I think one of the key points here about the transformations of Magnolia is that a company like ours is agile, stays agile, has their finger on the pulse of the market to survive, and I think we did this very well. We had the vision to build software that's better than anything out there, as Pascal mentioned earlier on. And the way that this has been built up is really in a very sustainable way, right? So we've been talking about the subscriptions, the base for what we can do today. The numbers that Pascal showed in the morning, in the beginning here, just show you that we have no external obligations, and we can start thinking about the future and how we think this should be. And about a year ago or so, we started to think about virtual presence management instead of content management, in a sense. And so I will just use a couple of minutes of your time and explain what we mean by virtual presence management and why we came up with this term and why we think this is exactly what you're doing at the moment and will be doing in the future. So it starts with the fact that 10, 15 years ago, the web was all about brochureware websites, very simple stuff that we have implemented for our customers at the time. Today, it's getting much more complex. As you all know, it goes into different channels, and you would like to interact with the web. You want to have transactions. Let's say Thomas Cook, one of our customers, instead of going to a travel agency office at the corner of your street, today, you pick up your mobile, you book your flights, you research your destinations, you book your cabs, whatnot, pick your seat on the airplane, all these things. So these enterprises that you interact with and organizations, and we talk about e-government in that context as well, they virtualize their presence for you, right? So you can interact with them no matter where you are.
The most important point here is it's not actually, we are still a content management company. It's not actually only about content management, it's about much more. 2003, when we started, it was only about content management. People were happy to not use front page and those kind of crappy tools anymore. Everybody knows it, how it was in that time. And, to use a real CMS. But nowadays, the world has challenged. And exactly that's what Boris talks
exactly.
about.
So I would like to see, just to show you the components, and we'll come back to that because that's really the core of our messaging today of virtual presence management. We see 3 components here. That's obviously the core part, the content management system. It's also the integration part and the publishing. And I will look at each of these just for a second here. So the content management system you could look at as a UI on a set of core services that we provide. And I've listed a couple here. We have, probably hundreds of services in Magnolia. It's a pretty big software, as most of you know by now. But let's look at just a few of them. Repository storage is something that you get, security, field level security. You get the possibility of interacting with workflow, many more like that. I'll come to that later. The second part of virtual presence is integration. How do you get all these data, the processes of your organization, how do you get that to the web? How can you open up to the web? And you need to integrate with your publishing system, with Magnolia. We have a couple of interesting technologies and a whole technology chain. I'm not going to show that, but I just want to highlight the Spring integration, which has been a major success. We had the partner awards yesterday and actually had the first virtual presence website award that we dished out, and it was really about a Blossom site in the end, ticket.se, which is a site where you can buy all sorts of tickets and travel. It's a typical example. Today we'll see a track about maglev. That's a Grails integration, so you can build applications on top of Magnolia with Grails, and they will again interact with your backend. Then we have the Java platform, obviously, where traditionally this is very open. This is why we have a lot of customers in the financial sector. They're all Java customers, and they need to integrate. The typical thing: you go to the insurance, and you want to, check out your insurance rate, stuff like that. Couple more. Last part is the publishing, specifically the multi-channel publishing. If you talk about virtual presence, it's not only the web. That's kind of obvious, I guess. Mobile here is the main new channel. We have done in 4.5 the mobile publishing, the mobile preview. You've seen that, so we're really in a very good spot there to help you become virtually present. But there are lots of other channels. So since mobile is so important, let's have a closer look at mobile.
The world has changed with the introduction of the iPhone 2007. Everybody has those devices in their hands. My children play with them. You don't have to train them to use them. Everybody knows how to use it. It has changed completely our perception on how to look at those devices, how to use mobile things. And we think that's one of the most important changes in the last 20 to 30 years that happened. Because it's not like it was before that people were like stuck on their old traditional systems. It's like they can now task-based, apps-based, download whatever need they have.
Yeah, so the mobile revolution, I think, is major. I think you all agree. I don't believe that anybody in here doesn't have a smartphone. Some might have several. But it's not only about us as private entities, if you want. It's also about the organization that we are concerned about, and we try to find out if there are some people that are smarter than us that have already said something about it. And we have a couple of quotes coming up. I'm not going to read all of them, but I think this one here is quite relevant because it shows us how mobility affects the organizations.
Talking about Brazil, BRIC countries, BRIC, that means Brazil, Russia, India, and China. If you look at good old Europe or United States, I mean, we are adopting those devices quite quickly. But if you look abroad, if you look to those BRIC countries, they don't buy any PCs anymore, or just like small ones or portable ones, so they buy mobile devices. And this is where it all comes from. So if you look in those countries, if you would like to expand in those countries, and that's what we want to do in the future, is that you have to take mobility and mobile revolution into account.
Yep, I agree. So the organizations are obviously affected by this. And we have another quote here by Gartner on a brilliant report called Effects of Mobility on Information Management. And it talks about how mobile actually transforms how these businesses interact, and you could say how they do virtual presence. But there are also challenges, obviously, in mobile, and I'm pretty sure most of you know that if you have tried to build any mobile site or mobile apps. And we want to highlight a couple of these challenges, not all of them. Starting with the mobile professionals, which really these are people that we think a lot about recently. And the question for the organization is, how do you get these people more productive? How can you be more productive when you're on the road? How can you be more productive if you're a field worker? let's say a good example, facility management. Facility manager goes out there, he needs to have maps of a building, he needs to be able to find out where all the meters are and all the stuff that he needs to take care of. And there's really a lot of information that he needs to interact with. Then there's the question of training for your mobile professionals, especially if you're global. Then there are the questions around bring your own device. That's a big trend, obviously. Organizations saying, well, it's actually not the organizations that drive this, but you guys, the mobile workers that come into the organization and say, look, guys, I have an iPad here, or an iPhone, or an Android, and the software that I have on this thing really works nicely. Why is the software that I have in my enterprise stuck in the 90s or even earlier? So they drive this change, This is about usability, it's about cost, and there's a lot of questions about security in bring your own device. How can you ensure that the people that come to your organizations and bring their iPad and access your data in any way, how to ensure that you get the apps to them, which would be provisioning. How can you ensure that you can support all the devices with the changing form factors and resolutions? HTML5 is a big topic, and we could go on for a couple more hours or a couple more conferences, but I'll just move on. And so we're talking about these expectations that have changed for the users, and this is something that we noticed. Certainly our expectations have changed, and I think one example there is that, I think I tell this now, when we finalized the design for Magnolia 5, it was like, I think, the third design that we finalized in a couple of years. Last summer we looked at this and we said, look, this looks great, but it's something we could have done a couple of years ago. It was really a nice design, and I wanted to show it.
We were some kind, proud, but we showed to the people, and they did not, we expected to say, yeah, that's cool, that's great design, and that's really exactly what we want, but they said, okay, no, just new. Just a bit.
Yeah, it just looks nice, but that's it. What we notice at the moment is that, it's, we could have done this 5 years ago, but the world has moved on. It's all about mobile, and there must be a different way to deal with mobile.
There are different approaches to deal with mobile, and there is one approach that usually our competitors are taking care. So they are not doing something special. They try to support, they try to enable mobile devices in any kind. They do it with native apps, they do it with inconsistent UIs, they want to release something for that device, and it's going to be a mess, really. I mean, you don't have the control over the UI, you have to get trained for every device, and it's going to change all the time. We have frameworks to bridge mobile OS, and the status quo of those initiatives, they're not satisfying. I mean, if you take into consideration for the future as well that things going to change, and that we have here a MacBook Air and has already a trackpad that's working quite nicely, and eventually it has a bigger trackpad within the next edition, you never know, and it's much more touch, much more mobile, everything goes into that direction. So I think the status quo is not satisfying.
It's definitely not satisfying. So the question is, what if we change our perspective a little bit and think about what we want to do from a different perspective?
So the most important question is, wouldn't it be nice if your CMS would work as simple and as flexible as your smartphone? So that's complete other thinking. So you have to completely rethink. If that should be the case, then you have to take into consideration to change complete metaphors of traditional content management system, and not only content management systems, but traditional enterprise software in general. So think about how those mobile devices work, how they act, how you interact with those, and try to transform this into an enterprise software. And that's
what we did last summer when we looked at the UI design and said, okay, this can't be it. So what if we rethink everything? If we think mobile first, if we start with the mobile aspects, and then go to the desktop, how would that change the interaction? Is it possible to change the interaction in such a way that it actually works on devices and on the desktop equally well, right?
Exactly, and then you have to take into consideration not only one device, not only, for example, an iPad, but you have to have a look at others. What do others? We would like to have a consistent UI over all devices. Doesn't matter how large they are. Devices that are not yet released, but devices that are on a traditional technology level, like HTML5, not traditional, but new and state-of-the-art technology stack.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that we can take from the mobile devices and from iOS specifically, or from the mobile operating systems. So they work in a different way, and they deal with complexity in a way that the enterprise software doesn't deal with. So if you look at the traditional enterprise software today, let's stick with content management system, you will get basically one screen that offers you every feature that anybody in your organizations could ever need. You know, most of these features you'd never need. You know the problem from the desktop software like Word, they try to come around with a couple of ideas. But in the enterprise world, this is really quite terrible. And we had this one quote where, I don't know, who was it? Some designer said, content management software is the software that UX designers forgot. And that's very sad and very true. So, well, enough about that. So it's all about mobile for us. We started to rethink everything. You know, we brought our iPads in, our iPhones, and said, what if we could work in an enterprise setting like this?
There is one more point additional to that. I mean, okay, UI, new metaphors, rethink how software works. That's one part. Technical things are the other part. You know, bringing them to the latest technologies. But there is something else that it's important.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know from your phones and your iPads, it's really nice. You can download apps and install them. They solve a lot of these issues of how do you customize your environment, how do you reduce complexity. So we start with apps, and we thought, what if we would have apps within Magnolia? And it's quite interesting, because if you think about content apps and your mobile professionals and your organizations, all the challenges that you have, Magnolia provides a lot of benefits to develop these apps. So if you do an app for a field worker, you would want that data to go back into your systems. You would want a repository storage. You would want to be able to publish this data, to enrich this data. You would want this to go through a workflow. If you go to publishing, you want to be able to scale, and you need the security, the nightmare number one for the CIOs today, because of the provisioning and bring your own device with the traditional apps. There are other benefits. Once you start looking at Magnolia as an app platform, we can actually ensure that there is a really nice user experience across all the devices by providing not only a shell for these apps and all the core services that you need, but also by providing the right documentation and user interface guidelines, which we actually published a couple of days ago for you guys, so that as soon as we're ready here, you can start happily hacking away.
So to create the right apps for the right system, it's, as Boris said, it's the UI guidelines for apps, for creating apps, and for reusing Magnolia into several projects. So that was one of our key initiatives as well, which I completely forgot before, which is the Magnolia user interface guidelines. I mean, I read some user interface guidelines from a fruit company long time ago, like in the 80s, 90s, and this made me feel very well when to create new software, and that's what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to achieve that people can write and developers can concentrate themselves on writing apps that are similar than the rest of the interface, so people don't have to learn things twice. So they get the guidelines, they can reuse certain components that we have developed.
So if you think about apps, there's more than that, and we come to that. But the interaction of mobile professionals with their organization is really a form of virtual presence for the organization, right? The organization opens up their data and processes to their workers on the road. So we clearly need to revisit our virtual presence management and add apps to the stack that we want to support. And since we've started to think about mobile and mobile first, we think there are other things that we could benefit from.
And what would you expect to have, like a software that we talked about that has, taking into consideration new metaphors, using those new devices as some kind of a point? And so you would like to have, of course, apps. They have to be personalized, task-based. You would like to expect a consistent UI, a new UI that works on every device. You would, of course, as our core message and our aim was from the beginning, you would expect to have standardized components, open source, based on Java, of course, as well. What else?
Simply you could say we want our content management to be as simple and flexible as your smartphone. And we looked at a lot of these things, and it's quite amazing what you could do. So finally, I think it's also quite important, that we are both very much into design and architecture, and it's one of the reasons I think why we kind of started to work together many years ago, because we think about things in different ways, but we kind of like the same things. So design, architecture, user interface design, the users, the interaction, the intuitive systems, this has always been important for us, and it's one of the reasons why Magnolia, even today, is still renowned to be one of the simplest to use and easiest to use content management systems. We think we can up the ante on that one. But we're not the only ones that think the user interface is important. We have another quote from Gartner here, and it's from a report titled "Tablets and Smartphones Are Changing How Content is Created, Consumed, and Delivered." And that's quite interesting, because this report is very new, and I always say it could have written by us. It's not, believe me, but that's really cool. And one of the key, statements there is the user interface can be the key factor in success or failure. And this is about apps in the mobile enterprise.